Okay, so there's a massive lawsuit that just dropped, and it's aimed squarely at the US government. The allegation? That a catastrophic failure in the student loan system is actively, right now, destroying the financial lives of millions of Americans. So let's get into it. Let's break down this $500 billion showdown. So, get this. The lawsuit is claiming that in just the past year, over 5 million student loan borrowers have been improperly shoved into delinquency or default. To put that into perspective, that's more people than the entire population of Los Angeles. And we're not talking about people who just decided not to pay. The whole argument here is that the system itself failed them. And believe it or not, that's just the start. The complaint projects that if nothing changes, that number could absolutely explode, quadrupling to 20 million borrowers by April 2026. I mean, we're talking about a potential financial crisis on a scale we've never really seen before. So what's the price tag for a failure this big? Well, right now, the lawsuit is asking for a staggering $500 billion in damages. But, and this is the crazy part, if those projections hold true and 20 million people are impacted, that number could swell to an almost unbelievable $2 trillion. So you gotta ask, right? How on earth did a system that was set up to help people get an education allegedly end up completely destroying their financial futures? We're gonna dive into the explosive allegations, the evidence they're presenting, and of course, what both sides are saying about all this.
All right, to really get what's going on, we have to look at who's involved. And this is a true David versus Goliath situation. You've got millions of everyday people on one side, and on the other, the federal government and some of the most powerful financial companies in the country.
So on one side, you've got the plaintiffs. That's millions of student loan borrowers, represented by 4 people specifically named in the lawsuit. And on the other side, the defendants, the U.S. Department of Education. And this is a huge deal. The 3 major credit bureaus are also named: Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. Now, the whole case really hangs on this one law called the Fair Credit Reporting Act, or FCRA for short. All you need to know is it's supposed to guarantee that the information on your credit report is accurate and fair. The lawsuit is basically saying the defendants didn't just mess up and break this law by accident, they did it willfully, intentionally.
So, the big question is, how did we even get to this point? And the answer in the lawsuit is pretty shocking. It's not about borrowers refusing to pay. No, it's alleging a total operational collapse inside the Department of Education that made it physically impossible for people to make their payments, even when they were trying their best to.
The complaint actually maps out a pretty clear timeline of how this all went down. After the COVID payment pause ended in January 2025, millions had to start paying again. But according to the suit, the system just crumbled. And while people were trying everything they could to pay, the department's own automated systems were just completely oblivious to the chaos. They were just automatically flagging people as delinquent and sending that bad info straight to the credit bureaus. So what did this collapse actually look like for a regular person? Well, the lawsuit paints this picture of just absolute bureaucratic chaos. We're talking phone wait times over 10 hours long, a 95% rate of people just giving up and hanging up, literal mountains of unprocessed mail, websites that were flat out broken, all happening while the agency was supposedly underfunded and losing staff. And that right there brings us to the heart of their argument. They're not just calling this an accident. The complaint uses very specific, very powerful legal language. It says these defaults were a willfully negligent direct result of the collapse. Basically, they're saying this wasn't some random act of God. It was a disaster they should have seen coming and could have prevented. You know, it's easy to get lost in the big numbers and system failures and all that, but the lawsuit really brings it back to the human cost, arguing that for millions of actual people, this inaccurate credit reporting has been completely life-altering. Yeah, a bad credit score, it's not just some number on a screen. It's like a wrecking ball to your financial life. It can mean losing a job, getting denied for an apartment, paying way higher interest rates on everything. You could be denied a car loan or even have your wages garnished, where your boss is forced to send your paycheck to your creditor. The lawsuit says millions are facing this right now through no fault of their own. And to see just how real this is, let's take a look at the story of one of the plaintiffs, Tamara Caesar. She works in banking, an industry where you pretty much have to have a clean credit report to get hired. The lawsuit says that because of this false negative mark on her record, a job offer she had in her hands was pulled. Just like that. But then, the complaint makes an allegation that's even more stunning. It claims the department is intentionally using bad credit reports as a weapon, a back-end collection tool. The idea here is that by tanking someone's credit, the department actually forces the borrower to chase them down, begging for help, which totally shifts the burden of their broken system onto the individual. Okay, so what's the government side of the story? A spokesperson for the Department of Education fired back pretty hard, calling the lawsuit an embittered attempt by ideologues. So they're basically framing this as a politically motivated attack on their work to clean up what they describe as illegal and irresponsible student loan schemes from the previous administration. But the lawyer for the borrowers, Devlin Cooper, he pushes back hard on that. He says, look, this isn't about politics, it's about basic competence. His position is that the Department of Education just doesn't have the people, the skills, or the systems to do its job right, and that the credit bureaus are just making it all worse by publishing the bad data.
So, what's the end game here? What are the plaintiffs actually trying to achieve with this? Well, they're not just asking for an apology. They're demanding huge, sweeping changes that could totally reshape the entire student loan system as we know it.
It all really comes down to 4 major demands. First up, they want money, financial damages for every single person affected. Second, a total reset on credit reports. Basically, wipe all federal student loan data since this mess started. Third, an immediate stop to all collections, like wage garnishments, and they want any money already taken to be returned. And finally, and this one is a real game changer, they want to allow these borrowers to discharge their student loans in bankruptcy, which is something most student borrowers are just not allowed to do right now. And all of this leaves us with one last massive question. This case is about so much more than student loans. It's about whether the U.S. government, the largest lender in the country, can be held responsible when it fails. So, could this whole thing force a fundamental change in how the government is held accountable? It really makes you wonder, when the system itself breaks, who's the one that has to pay the price?